Hey guys, today in this video we're going to be looking at positioning. So to start off, there are two different types of positioning. There's macro positioning and micro positioning. Macro positioning is the general area that you decide to go to during the battle. It could be a certain flank, a certain location such as a hill, or maybe even like a riverbed. And you choose this based on your tank's playstyle and how you want to play the battle. For this, general map knowledge is key, such as knowing the terrain features of the map and how your tank would play around those, such as buildings or hills or stuff like that. Micro positioning, on the other hand, is the specific spot in that area that you choose that you want to play. So it could be a piece of cover such as a house or a bush or a rock or even a small undulation in the ground where you can hide your lower plate so you can go hold down. Choose this based on your tank's playstyle and how the battle is developing. So for instance, a tank that's good at side scraping would probably do better taking cover by a house rather than a bush. Or a sniping tank destroyer would be better with a bush than a house that's closer to the enemy. And then also how the battle is developing. So that could be like if your flank is getting overrun, you can start backing up, taking cover from further pieces of cover back from where the fighting is taking place so that you can make sure that you're staying in the fight longer. For this, detailed map knowledge and real-time observations are key. So detailed map knowledge, knowing what houses provide the best cover from the different directions that you could be receiving shots from, where the best bush locations are in a certain area. It can even be you seeing there's a bunch of tanks coming at you, so you need to get out of that area altogether. And that would be based off of a real-time observation. Or on the other hand, if your team's winning, you don't want to stay at the back of the map and not get any more damage. So you're going to want to keep pushing forward and finding those covers, those pieces of cover that are close to the enemy so that you can keep on farming the damage. Now looking at macro positioning real quick, usually maps are split into 3 corridors. There's usually a left, middle, and a right, or a top, middle, bottom, depending on how the map is set up. But usually there's 3. Usually there's going to be like a heavy tank area, there's going to be a light tank playground with tank destroyer support, and there's going to be another flank that mediums can go to, or heavies, and try to take advantage of some flanking routes. Usually that's how it's going to be set up. You got 3 corridors to choose from, and they all kind of cater to a different kind of play style. So for instance, on this map, if you were a heavy tank with lots of side armor and a decent turret, then you'd probably want to go over here. Over here you can sit around here, and you could, brawl it out at close range with other enemy heavy tanks. If you were a tank destroyer, maybe you want to sit here. That way when the light tank does things over here, you can provide fire support here or here. If you're a medium tank, you can go here, you can go here, wherever you want to go. It just depends on how your medium tank plays out. Micro positioning is a lot closer. So we'll just do this, and we'll take that heavy tank example again. So you're a heavy tank, and you come up to this flank, and you want to fight some enemy heavy tanks. You come up here, and let's say you're in an Object 705A, right? You got no gun depression over the front, really. You have pretty good side scraping potential, and you got a decent turret and everything. You're going to want to come over to this side, because right here, you can side scrape off of this rock here and fight these guys, and you won't be showing your lower plate, and you won't be playing to your tank's weaknesses, such as your bad gun depression. You could also play off of this corner here. Now, if you were a tank that did have good gun depression, let's say a Type 71, you could go back here. You can't really see it on the map, but there is a pretty good undulation right here. You can pop up right here. You could take a shot over here or over here, and you could back down and only your turret would be exposed. Likewise, on the other side, it'd be the same thing. You're a 705A or a mouse or something, you come to this corner, you could side scrape here, or you come over here, side scrape here, or you could go inside here if you're in a hold down heavy tank for either side. You sit here underneath this blimp wreckage, you can shoot down here or down here. And then, if you had gun depression, you could sit back here. You can't really see it on the map again, but there's a little spot here that you can hide most of your tank and just show your turret and maybe your upper front hole, and you can shoot this way and such. Likewise over here, if you had a tank that's got good gun depression and everything, you could sit here and you could just aim down this way, shoot at anybody that's going to be coming through this way, or you can move up here and you could side scrape, shoot this, or you could poke out here, side scrape, and shoot tanks here, or if you're here, you shoot out this way through here. And this would be the opposite position here. So another example would be like tank destroyers. Some people think that all tank destroyers play the same, which they don't. To me, there are two types of tank destroyers, really. There's the assault tank destroyer and then the sniper tank destroyer. The assault tank destroyers are usually slower. They got good armor, pretty decent gun. They play more like a heavy tank. So say you were in a T110E3, right? That's definitely an assault tank destroyer. I would take it over here to this flank because I would play with the heavies. And I could use my armor and my gun to punish the heavies and brawl it out with them here. Alternatively, if you were in something like a Grill 15, maybe you sit back here and you can support here. You might be able to get some shots here if these guys push. You do this, and then all these trees here on this side and here on this side will help you in different ways depending on which way you want to engage targets. And then finally, a medium tank would be kind of the same deal. You kind of have your armored medium tanks and your less armored medium tanks, but they're a lot more flexible with what they can do. So for instance, if you had a medium tank come over here, you could take this area here, secure the flank, and then you could kind of flank around like this and shoot these guys, or you come back here, find the artillery, do what you gotta do. Alternatively, this spot here isn't well used. Like, there are lots of buildings here that you could stick a heavy tank in, like right here, and you could get shots this way. Or you could stick it here, and you could get shots this way. So there's lots of different positions you could use. Another good one is back here, if you're in a tank destroyer. Sitting back here, you get all kinds of shots on enemies that are pushing this way. Or on the other side, it would be about here. So having map knowledge is the key factor for figuring out where you want to position yourself so that you can be the most influential in your games and get more damage, get more kills, and all that stuff. Let's look at another example real quick of more like micro positioning. So we're gonna be in a heavy tank here, and we decide in the battle countdown that we want to go take the hill. And we're sitting up here, but we don't have the best gun depression. Let's say we're in IS-4. right? We don't have the best gun depression. We're not going to be too influential here. And we'll just say that there's a couple bad guys that are sitting over here. Get rid of that. There we go. And they're just, beating us real bad. We can't do anything. So we decided to let our friends stay here and hold this flank. And we'll head around this way. So we'll get about here and we'll peek this corner here. And we don't see anything, so we say, aha, we're gonna take this over here and we're gonna get here. And now we can get shots into their rears from here. So this would be an example of changing your macro position. Originally we were here. We weren't putting in enough work that we could have been, so we decided to rotate around and change our position on the map so that we can be more influential. Now, let's say we're sitting here, we're doing some big damage, and the enemy finally realizes and they send another tank after us. I don't know why it keeps switching. And suddenly, they're coming at us like this, and we are all alone. We can't go brawl out in the open with them because they have the tank destroyer support back here. So, instead of throwing our tank away in a blaze of glory, we're going to retreat like this. We're going to back up here, and then this guy is going to give chase. And here is an example of micro positioning. So we're taking our time, we're moving back, we'll say we stop right here. And he pulls around the corner here, and we put a shot into him. And then we keep falling back. We make it back here. He comes here and he starts chasing us. And all of a sudden, we got our own sniper support here. So, what we did there was we changed our position in the general area where we still were. So we're still on the east side of the map. But what we did was we saw that we weren't going to, win this battle. So we fall back, we let them chase us, and then we let our tank destroyer support help us out. And suddenly, it's now a 2v1. Whereas before, if you remember, when we started, it was actually a 1 versus 3. So we just changed that to be in our favor. That'd be an example of micro positioning. Alternatively, another even smaller version of micro positioning would say we're on this side of the map. And we're sitting on this side. And let's say that they have the hill. So from here, we're fighting this guy, we're kind of winning our fight over here. And then suddenly this guy, there's somewhere here, like here or something. This guy starts putting shots into you. Or say, we'll switch it. We'll say that we're on this side and the enemy's on this side. Enemy come over here and take this position, and they got shots on us. So micro positioning here, we could either move up, we could be behind this rock, so this guy can no longer hit us because of this rock here. Or we can move up over here, because once again, this guy can't hit us. And if you were to move over to this side, still can't hit us because of this rock here. Or the other thing that we could do is we could fall back here. We could let this guy push. If we fall back here, we can still shoot this way, and now our tank destroyers in the back can support too. So a couple different versions of micro positioning there. Now let's look at a couple different replays, and I can show you good micro positioning and bad micro positioning. Alrighty, first replay. So all of these replays I'm going to show today are going to be from the same night of advances that we did. And the first one we got here is on Live Oaks, and we're in the Ashigaru. So initially our macro positioning is we're going to be in the mid here. We're going to support the EVR spotting mid, as well as try to get shots on the enemies that are driving through the back there. I'm not too familiar with this sniping area, so if there's any little tiny shooting holes and stuff that I don't know of, I apologize. But as the battle is developing, we can see that the EBR was actually called away. He's going to go spot the south, so now we don't have anybody to spot for us. So this leopard and I are kind of just sitting here in our initial macro position, and we're not really getting anything done. And it's at this point that I notice on the map, because map awareness is very important, that we have a single Dravik here who's getting pushed by multiple IS-7s. He's not going to survive very long on his own. So while our main caller is focusing the calls on the group here, I make the call. I say, hey, Leopard 1, let's go support our Dravik over here. Because we can also see that most of their team has been spotted. It's just the STRVs that haven't been spotted yet. So we know that there's not a whole lot they can do, especially if there's an STRV in the south. So we're going to move in and try to support this Dravik. And at this point, I'm telling the Dravik, keep falling back, fall back to the Leopard and I, so we can support you. So now you can see where the Dravik is. He's fallen back to a position where he's only engaged by one IS-7. You can see 3 other IS-7s back here, but he's fallen back to a position where he's only fighting one. This is an example of micro positioning. So he was over here on this road, getting rushed. So I told him to keep backing up, keep backing up. And now you see I am with him here, and then our Leopard is over here shooting the enemy tanks as they cross to try to get to us. So now we're just working together. We're trying to get these IS-7s taken out. And at this point, I see that the IS-7s they've all rotated around this way. They've killed our Leopard, and now they're going after the Dravik here, and there's even an EBR in the back here. And we do have a T110E5 here, but I feel like it is safe because of my very low armor. That I need to do like a fighting retreat, right? So I'm still fighting these guys. I'm still focusing on the low health targets, whichever one has the lowest health I'm going for. But in between shots, I'm slowly repositioning, making sure that I'm not facing more guns than I have to be. So you see now I'm falling back, and we're winning this fight in the city. So I'm making my way towards our friendlies in the city while also trying to engage the IS-7s as well. And you see we have another friendly Dravik that came back. So now we outnumber them, and now we can push back into them. And from here, we're just cleaning him up. So while we finish him off, we started here on the hill with the Leopard and the Dravik here. The Dravik was getting rushed, so he fell back, and the Leopard and I came in to support. And from there, we just all kind of took turns taking the fire, really. But I made sure that I was not going to be engaged quickly if they ever wanted to engage me, because I just kept falling back to the buildings, making it hard for them to hit me and getting closer to friendly tanks. So just in case they did win that brawl there, they'd have to go through a lot of buildings to get to me, and by the time they did get to me, you know, there's 6 tanks there waiting for them besides me. And then here, it's just a cleanup, really. So there, just don't mind that last shot. So to recap, we started here. Macro positioning was in the tank destroyer position here. We weren't getting a lot done. We saw some friendlies that were in trouble, so we rotated over, changed our macro position from a TD spot to the city, and we just bobbed and weaved between the buildings once it looked like we were going to get engaged next, so that we couldn't get engaged next. And that's how we were able to stay alive with all of our health and be top on damage too, I want to say. Alrighty, next battle, we're on mines, and we're in the CS63. So our initial macro positioning would be taking the hill, taking the high ground, and then we'll see where the enemies deploy from here. Micro positioning wise, you see already the CSs are getting into it. We have a couple getting up here, taking shots on them here. We have one guy watching their base at the moment. And then I'm coming over here so that I can support the heavy tank area. So from here, we are just fighting it out with our positioning here. And we still have our guys over here trying to get shots in. We're joined by this other CS here and this BZ that made it up onto the hill. But we can also see that we have some enemies that are flanking around here. For now, we're just going to keep fighting here. And in a second, there's going to be a call to take these guys out. But you can see some other stuff happen as well. So right here, this is an example of not great micro positioning here. I'm not going to say who it is. I'm not naming and shaming. I'm just pointing out. So this CS63 here wanted to switch sides. He wanted to come over here and shoot these guys. But instead of taking the safe way around, which would have taken maybe 10 more seconds, and come around this way, instead they cross in front of a bunch of heavy tanks. And luckily only one of the enemy heavy tanks were paying attention. But he does lose 700 hit points for nothing, basically. But he does make it over here so that he can help support this. And you see now the friendly heavy tanks are pushing to take care of this. In a group setting, this is a version of macro positioning changing. So we have our main force that are just coming down to crush these guys as soon as possible, so that they can come back here and support us. The caller did ask if he thought that we could hold it. We said yes. We'll see if we're able to. He asked us guys on the hill. From here we can see we still have good micro position here. We have people on both sides engaging these tanks. And we still have a couple guys here that are shooting them as well. The only issue is that it's a bunch of Type 5s fighting into a bunch of mediums. So it's not going to go very well for us. We didn't hold on to it for as long as I thought we could. But here we are, we're changing our macro position. We are just leaving the hill. Unfortunately, we are giving up the high ground, but we are in the hopes of maybe gaining it back. Luckily that Dravic's HE shell didn't penetrate us. That would have been really unfortunate. But now we've changed our macro position. We're now down here in the town with another CS63, and I call on him and I say, hey, let's go take out this Dravic in this 140. So now we're just fighting the 140, but the 140 is changing his macro position because he knows he's alone. So he's falling back, and now we see this Type 5 is falling off the hill. So we say, alright, let's turn around, let's engage this Type 5. But here we are, we're going to engage the Type 5, and keep an eye on the other friendly tanks. So we had 1 or 2 BZ-75s that were fighting here alone against 5 enemy tanks. That was unfortunate for them. They got caught out in a bad spot. But now back to this battle real quick. You can see the micro positioning that's taking place with me and this other 63 versus their tanks. So we're trying to stay behind the building from the Type 5, because you know the Type 5 has a lot of the alpha damage. So from here, I'm fighting the 140, and I'm in cover from the Type 5, and I'm starting to back up, trying to get away from the Dravek. Unfortunately, the Dravek gets a shot in, and that's it for us. But we can also see right there, we had an IS-7 here, and we have our BC-75 here. That is poor micro positioning on their part. Again, not going to say who, but sticking together would have been better there. You see that the BZ-75 has all of his hit points, and the IS-7 was a one-shot. So if they stuck together, maybe the BZ could have taken a couple shots from him, kept the guns in longer, maybe gotten another kill or two, maybe more, who knows. They probably still wouldn't have won, but you know, it would have given them a better chance to at least do some more. And then from here, you know, it ends poorly for us. But we'll go ahead and head to the next clip. Alright, next replay, we're on Serene Coaster, the T-125. And our initial macro positioning was called for two of us to come over here to the hill. Judging by their lineup, there aren't going to be very many tanks over here to meet us. They don't have a lot of good hold down heavy tanks to fight on the hill. And they're on defense in this advance that we were playing. So you can see by their lineup, they were planning on turtling this game. But you can see in a version of micro positioning here, we're still in the same spot as we were called, but you can see from here, I am pretty much hold down. I can see into their base, or at least I have line of sight into their base from here. As far as shots, I can still make, you know, blind shots in this area if I need to. And if they have anybody else nearby, I'll still be hold down for them. Likewise, this other T-125 here with me is also hold down, watching this area. And here we were basically just acting as outer security for the time being. You see, I move up a little bit because I want to see if I can't get any shots in this Type 5 heavy here. Unfortunately, we are firing at over 550 meters away, so shots aren't going to be hitting very well. You see, we're still in the same spot. We did move up a little bit, but we are still hold down from any return fire that may be coming our way. Just skip forward a little bit here, because we do sit here for a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so now we get called to move up even further. So now we can see the back position here where the CS-63 is last spotted. A lot of people like to stick tank destroyers and stuff back there to support. So now we can actually fire back on those guys, while we also took this corner here, where these guys are here. So we were called to move up to roughly this position. So now you can see where I'm at is I've taken up a bushed location where I'm also hold down. So it'll be hard to spot me and it'll be hard to shoot me at the same time. This T-125 takes up a more forward position where I believe he's in a little hold down divot right there where he can kind of use his turret armor to protect himself. We also have an EBR that's sitting in the bush, spotting any rotations that may come out. So now we're just waiting again, waiting for anything to happen, and a call gets made for a rotation to come out. So you can see these guys over here are rotating around, and we're going to bunch up and push this area. Unfortunately, this is a very, very hard turtle to dig out. Very, very difficult, especially if you don't have artillery or anything. And so now we're just waiting for our team to rotate in. And now the call gets made to bunch up. This is more of an example of not listening exactly to what the caller says, but still listening to what the caller says. So you can see these guys over here went exactly to where the ping was. They get spotted right away, and they start getting shot by the BZT. And if their Type 5s were still here, they would be shooting them as well. So bunching up here would have been safer. We're not going to get spotted right away, and we're in cover. But then the call gets made for the push, and we're going to go ahead and push. And spoiler alert, it's not going to work out for us. They just have too much HP, and we don't have enough time to shoot through it. So we'll just head on to the next one so you don't have to watch. Alright, final replay. This one, we're on Fisherman's Bay, and we are in the VK 72.01K. And I was called to basically watch this line here, the one line, for any like blitzes or anything that they may do. But you can see on the map that they didn't go this way. They decided to go the other way. So our team is rotating around to meet them, while I am still holding the flank and watching for any flanking maneuvers by light tanks or sniping tank destroyers or anything. And I don't know if you saw that, but there was a round that just hit the ground next to us. So at this point, I can see that on the map, our mid is also getting pushed. So our tanks in mid are getting pushed by their tanks in mid. And I'm not doing anything. I'm a gun out of the fight. So what I decided to do is take a pot shot at this bush here from where I think maybe the round could have come from. I don't believe that hit anything. But now I'm going to rotate around and try to get shots on the mid, still from the same area. So I'm not changing my macro positioning at all here. I'm just rotating a little bit so that I can get these T95s in render, and I can potentially support my teammates in the middle. Just to ignore that shot. VK was not working for me this battle at all in terms of accuracy. So I do turn back to face the EBR just to scare him off, and he does run off. Looking for a shot because EBR kills are very important. I'm not going to find any. So now I'm going to rotate my attention back towards the enemies that are pushing. You see that you can actually see them. Actually hitting them is a different story, however. You know, firing at this long range with this big a gun, it's down to luck basically. But you can see now I am still rotating. We won the city, but we lost the mid. So I am still rotating to try to support my team. You see I do auto aim at that target there because I don't want to aim through 2 walls. I'm not going to hit anything for sure, but if I auto aim, you know, there's a chance. And now you see I got hit by a TESAC and an STRV from this position here. So now I definitely need to fall back and take a position where I'm out of their way. I show you how great of a player I am by missing the chieftain again. While still watching this other side, I spot the STRV, and I know that he's rotating around to fight me, so I know I don't have a lot of time left. And now that these guys are out of render in the city, I'm going to turn to face these guys. Sit here, angle against the TESAC, put a shot into him, and I think about chasing, and I'm like, no, there's at least 1 STRV, probably 2. So I'm not going to go all the way and chase the TESAC right now. I'm just going to dig in. The VK is very good at digging into a position, and it's very hard to get it unstuck. It's got high alpha damage, high pen, good armor, and you know, it's the perfect tank for this position. Unfortunately, there I had high explosive loaded, thinking maybe I could get a sneaky shot into the TESAC, so I had to intuition switch to another round, which means I couldn't get a shot into that STRV. And that actually is a point that I want to make real quick. I didn't stay in that position to get that shot off because I know that there's another STRV covering him. So instead of sitting there for 5 seconds while I intuition switch from a high explosive shell to an AP shell, I start backing up. Because it takes 5 seconds to switch, it takes just over 5 seconds for the STRV to reload. So that means I would have taken at least 1 more shot before I could start backing up and getting out of fire. So instead of taking the shot on the STRV and exposing myself for longer, instead I'm backing up already so that I can decrease the amount of time that I have to very high damage per minute and high penetration guns looking at me. I do take 2 shots from this STRV in the back, I think. Maybe I only take 1. Okay, I only take 1. But I angled my armor against that STRV. The first time, bounced a shot, and as I'm retreating again, I do take another shot from him. You can see I didn't stop to shoot. If I stop to shoot, this gun takes forever to aim. I may not even penetrate the shot if I do hit the shot. So instead, I'm mitigating the danger that is against me and living to fight another day. Because you can see our friendlies won this city and then they won mid. Absolute crazy people won that engagement. So now I fall back behind this hill here. So now the STRVs, they can't shoot me. They can't use their strengths against me, which is their camouflage and their damage per minute. And they have to push over into me. And so I'm just sitting here, I'm biding my time. I have a T110E5 that's moving around behind me to support me. And I poke up to see if I can get any spots. I do see this STRV here. Once again, in order to shoot him, I'd have to expose myself to anything over here if that STRV is still here. So I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm going to reposition a little bit, get a little bit further down the hill, so I'm not as exposed to anything. And I'm just going to try to shoot through the wall here, just barely miss the STRV, and I'm going to immediately start backing up. Now, the E5 or the IS-7, I can't tell which, I think it was the IS-7, does put a shot into him. And now I'm playing spotter in a super heavy tank. And now, but I'm getting rushed by 2 STRVs now. So I'm backing up, put a shot in the STRV, and I keep backing up. They have to keep pushing into me if they want to shoot me. And now I have fire support from the IS-7 and the T110E5. And I angle my armor and my turret up again so he can't shoot my turret roof from my commander's cupola. And now they have to back off because they can't push me because I have tanks and support. Now that I know if they're backing off and they're running away, they can't shoot while they're running away, I pull up, and this guy for some reason decides to try to take a shot into me, and I finish him off. Now from here, I'm still going to sit here for a little bit. I'm not sure where this other STRV is, and I am still technically alone if I go over this hill here. The IS-7, the T110E5 can't support. But at this point, somebody calls it there's STRV shooting them more from, the H1G1 area. So I'm thinking, okay, I can probably move up at this point. The T110E5 is going to pull up as well as this IS-7 that I have in support. I guess it wasn't called out right now. It's called out probably right now. Yeah, it was called out now. So now I know I can move up because if nothing else, there's just an STRV that's close by, and I can probably face an STRV. Because the other 2 tanks are spotted up in the north. So now, excuse me, I'm just going to push straight into the STRV, see if I can't, find him and take him out before he plugs our friendlies full of holes. And you can see here I am position myself in a way so I can spot anything that is nearby. Not going down into the dip here so I can still spot this side. I'm still being close enough to spot anything that is in the dip. I load HE here, try to get the rear of the STRV. Armor not hit because it's World of Tanks. And from here, we've pretty much got this game in the bag, so I'm just going to load another HE round, try to go for the Tessac. I know this gun's been trolling me all game, so I'm not taking that shot. I'm going to wait for a better shot. There's the better shot. There's 944 damage. And then that's that game. So you can see from that one, I never really changed my macro position all game. I stayed in the same area, but I changed my micro position enough where I was never in a position where I was completely outnumbered. I always had support, or at least I could always provide some support, and that's how I was able to stay alive for the whole game. Was just repositioning myself without giving up my position, if that makes sense. Because if the STRVs would have gotten into this little hilly area at J2K2, and the EBR and the Tessag were doing spotting things around our base, it would have been very hard to dig them out. But because I never really gave up the position, and I never really was alone, I was always able to keep the pressure on them from being able to dig in there really well and do some serious damage. Alright, let's look at a couple examples real quick and run through some scenarios for macro positioning. So here on Erlenberg, we're spawning south and we are in a super heavy tank. So where do you think we should go? Based on your map knowledge of Erlenberg and the knowledge that you're in a slow-moving, heavily armored tank that's probably fairly large, let's see. Let's go this way. We're going to go up the east side, and we're going to be in the hills right here. What do you think? Is that a good idea or a bad idea? It's pretty much always going to be a bad idea. This location here, in fact, the whole east side, really, not including the town along the river, you rely on your camouflage to keep you safe here. There's not a lot of hard cover, especially over here on the map border. So a super heavy tank will not work well there. Instead, a super heavy tank may want to make its way up the road here, fight on the east side in these buildings here, or alternatively, he can cross the bridge here and make his way to these buildings or across the bridge here. Sometimes a super heavy tank can work over here in the castle, but that's more designed for, hold down tanks and stuff like that, but you can still make it work here. But generally, a super heavy tank, you're going to want to fight it in the city over here on Erlenberg. Alright, next up. El Haluf. Let's say we're in another heavy tank here with good gun depression, good turret armor, and we're decently speedy. Let's see, so are we going to sit here? And a little sniper nest here, because you can see all this here, you get some good shots, right? Nope, we're not going to sit there. How about here? While you can go hold down here, you're not going to be very useful. Instead, if you're in a hold down tank, you're going to want to make your way over here, and right here in on this little hill here, you can fight it out anywhere here. Use your gun depression, your good turret armor. You fight along here. Same thing with the other side. You want to come over here, sit here, go hold down here. If you're really fast, you can make it all the way over to here from both sides, and that could be good for you. You just got to watch out, because if anything sits here while you're trying to cross this way, they can get shots and be like that. So just be wary of that. Same thing for the other side. If you're trying to cross here, they can shoot you here. But a hold down tank is going to do a lot better here than if it was over here or down here or, anywhere else. Cliff, let's see. We're going to be in let's say we're in another hold down heavy tank. So we make it up here, right? We want to go here. We want to go here. Any of these places can work. Here can work too. Any of these places where you can use your gun depression and your turret armor to good effect. Down here, not so much. There isn't many places you could go hold down. You can side scrape off the corner here, off the corner on the opposite side here, or here, or here. But generally, it's, in a hold down heavy tank, you're going to want to make your way up here. Alrighty, and then Pilsen, we're in another super heavy tank. So we are going to go, we're going to come this way, and we're going to go here. Does that work? It actually does. Or you want to come in here, you go here. That works. What you don't want to do is make your way all the way along like this, spend the first 5 minutes of battle traveling all the way over here, and sit in a bush way in the back. Because there's no hard cover anywhere here except for a little riverbed here, and you're going to get spotted way before you make it here and into some kind of cover. And if you're in a super heavy tank, you may not even fit in the cover. They still might be able to shoot you if they're sitting back here. So super heavy tanks should not go here. What about in the coal piles? Should the super heavy go here? Probably not. There is hard cover, yes, but once you get into the coal piles, you're kind of trapped. The coal piles, they require speed and maneuverability more than anything else to really perform well here. Just because the enemies will have tank destroyers overlooking these positions like that, and it's not going to be fun for you because tank destroyers are the natural enemy of the super heavy tanks. So just keep that in mind. Shouldn't go here, over here, over here, over here, anywhere along here works, just not over here. Finally, highway, we're just going to stick with heavies all the way through. Hold down heavy. Where should a hold down heavy go? Good turret armor, good gun depression. Maybe not the best whole armor, as many hold down heavy tanks have. Should we take it into the city? Actually, we could take it to the city. There are several spots where you can go hold down if you wanted to. They aren't very common, but there are some. You could also side scrape, but it's not the best place you could go. But with the recent changes to highway, a hold down heavy tank would work really well over in this area here. It's kind of hard to see on the map, but there are ridges where you can go hold down and make use of your turret armor and your gun depression. What about here? Here, probably not, because once again, you're going to have enemy tank destroyers set up around these positions looking to get shots into you if you're in the middle. Now, this can work in certain circumstances, such as like clan related activities like advances. It could work here if you want to take this position with a couple of these guys. But in randoms, this is not a good position to take for a hold down heavy tank usually. You're going to want to come over here or alternatively over here. Alrighty, and now let's look at a couple micro positioning scenarios here. So first up, we have an IS-7, and our point of view would be the point of view of the enemy. So what do you think? Is this a good position or a bad position for the IS-7? It's a good position. He's hold down, he's covering his lower plate. His front armor is facing the enemy correctly, and only his turret is showing. Besides that, this is a good position for an IS-7 to take because it'll be very hard to penetrate him frontally like this. What about the next one? A T-110E5, same corner. Here's the rubble pile. Here's the tank. What do you think? Good position or bad position? It's the same position, right? It should be good, right? It's actually bad because you can see here the commander's cupola on top, which is the weak spot of the T-110E5, is exposed. And you have to expose this if you were back behind the corner and pulling out to engage. You'd have to expose the commander's cupola before even his gun was around the corner. So this is a bad position for a T-110E5. What about this T-110E5 position? He's hold down. What do you think? Good position, bad position? This one, he's good. You see, he is hiding his cupola up here for the most part. His gun is exposed, and then his turret, which is very strong, is exposed, and then his upper front plate, which is also strong, is exposed. These are the only things exposed. You're not going to penetrate this easily. So this is a good position for him to take. A lot of tanks with a large weak spot on one side of the turret will perform well on certain corners, like this one, or perform poorly on corners like this one. You could just, all you got to do is just keep in mind where your cupola is. So what about this? Not this guy. The IS-7 here. Is this a good position or a bad position for the IS-7? Yes, there's no cover here for him to go hold down on, but he's hiding his lower plate, right? And he's angling his sidearm. This is a bad position for an IS-7 to take, because if you look at the pike nose of the IS-7, you know how there are two plates that are angled towards each other in the center. Well, when he's angled himself like this plate becomes flat. It's no longer angled. So now this becomes a weak spot. So this is a bad position for an IS-7 to take. What about this one? T110E5 side scraping. A good position or bad position? This is a good position. You see his lower plate is hidden. His side armor is not over angled. Before you say anything, I did double check this is not over angled. And his weak spot's hidden up here, and his gun is exposed, meaning he can shoot you and you cannot penetrate him very easily in return. This is a good position. Next, IS-7 on a hill. The guy driving the IS-7, I told him, go on the other side of this hill, drive over the hill until you can aim your gun at my lower plate. And so he took his IS-7 to the hill, and he drove, and this is the point where he could engage the lower plate of my tank. Is this a good position or a bad position for the IS-7 to take trying to engage me on a hill? Obviously, this is a bad position for the IS-7. He doesn't have the gun depression to be able to engage tanks very well. So a hill is not a good position for an IS-7 unless the hill is angled down and, it's a lot of funky angles are happening. Okay, let's try the reverse. The Chieftain, the Tier 10 reward Chieftain. Is this a good position or a bad position for it to take? Same hill, just slightly off to the side. Well, this is a good position. The Chieftain is hiding its lower plate behind the hill, using its gun depression, only its turret is exposed, a little bit of its upper front hole. This is a good position for it to take. You cannot engage a Chieftain like this very easily, if at all, in a position like this. So this would be a good position for it to take. Alrighty, and then finally, for clan-related activities specifically, listen to the caller and go to the macro position that they want you to be at. If you think it's a bad idea, then calmly report to them why and don't clog up the voice communications too much. But don't argue with them and throw the caller off their game. It's better to lose by listening to the caller and they know that it was their fault than losing because you did your own thing and left the rest of the team out to dry. The caller would never know if their plan would have worked, and it will mean another potential loss in the future if they try to do the same thing again. Just stick with what they're calling for you to do. Calmly report if you don't think it's a great idea, but in the end, just listen to them. Let them fail on their own terms, and then you can discuss it later with them civilly. And unless they say where they want you to go exactly, the micro positioning is up to you. Remember to choose the best micro position for your tank, and this may mean that you are not even exposing yourself to the enemy at all. Don't worry about having them spotted 24/7. Sometimes you just need to stay out of harm's way completely. Especially, I've seen it so many times, the caller says, don't bleed. And somebody will pull around the corner because they think they have a shot and lose 2/3 of their hit points and bounce their shot that they thought they had for free. So if a caller says don't bleed, don't expose yourself to enemy fire unless you know for 100% certainty that you aren't in danger of losing health. But that's going to be rare because there's always different variables to think of, tanks rotating, high explosive being loaded, a Jagdpanzer E100 firing heat. You never know. So just be very careful, and sometimes you just don't expose yourself at all. And if you find that you are taking a lot of unnecessary damage in that micro position that you chose for yourself, correct it. Change where you're at. Don't do it again. If you know it's not going to work, don't poke around the same corner again. Try a different spot. If it's a micro position that you've been told to go there specifically by the caller, calmly report to them again, say, hey, this isn't working. Is there anywhere else you'd like me to go? And see what they say. And another micro positioning idea you can keep in your mind is if the fighting is limited to a couple of tanks at a time, say there's 3 or 4 fighting on a corner against another 3 or 4 on the opposite side, watch your HP. If you're low on HP, back off, let somebody else take your spot that has more health than you. You got to keep the guns in the game. And that goes vice versa as well. If you see a friendly tank low on HP, say, hey, such and so, back up, let me take your spot so you don't die. Take their spot and continue the fighting with fresh HP. Don't let guns leave the game unnecessarily. Keep your wits about you. Make sure you are making the right decisions to keep everybody alive longer. Alrighty, and that about does it for this video. I just want to go over the key points for the positioning again. Macro positioning is the general area that you want to go to during a battle, such as a flank, a location like a hill, or a riverbed, or a house, or a castle, or whatever that's really, really strong. And you choose this based on your tank's playstyle. So you don't want to take a heavily armored tank to a spot where there isn't a lot of hard cover. And it's all, bushes and trees and open fields, because you're not going to survive very long, even if you do have strong frontal armor. And likewise, you don't want to take a lightly armored tank to where the heavy tanks are fighting. So you got to know your tank's playstyle, how it performs in different locations, and how you want to play as well. Because tanks aren't just limited to heavy tank flank, medium tank flank, tank destroyer flank. There's a lot of different things you can do. It depends on your tank's capabilities and your own capabilities. For that, you just got to know the general map layout. Know where the tanks will perform well based on terrain features, and position yourself in a way that you can take advantage of those. Micro positioning is taking advantage of those positions that you want to take advantage of. It's the specific spots on the flanks or in the areas that you want to play. It's a house, a bush, a rock with a bush if you're lucky, or it can even be a small piece of terrain that comes up and you can hide behind it, just expose your turret, and put a million shots downrange while bouncing a million shots in return. You choose this on your tank's playstyle again, and how the battle is developing. So it's not just how you want to play, it's how you should play, and how your play should affect your teammates and the enemies. And then that just boils down to detailed map knowledge, knowing the right houses to go to, knowing the right rocks and bushes and all that. And as the battle develops, knowing which positions to fall back to.